traders in Burkina Faso. Tonight, the minority is firing salvos at government and demanding accountability. We have the untold story. And top story, as always, is brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies and holy insecticide spray and quell. Enjoy a holy sleep. Well, if you haven't followed proceedings in Parliament today, it's nothing short of chaos, tempers flaring on the floor of the House, and you might want to call that an uproar, which emerged on the floor of the House following the killing of some 8 Ghanaian tomato traders in Burkina Faso. The minority in Parliament is calling for an immediate probe and a possible compensation for the victims of and their families. Ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, Samuel Abujinapo, together with his deputy Nana Asafoe today, are leading that charge, questioning whether or not the Ghanaian authorities had indeed acted on intelligence reports. That debate turned heated, with accusations flying between the minority and the majority sides of the House.
The minority demands the following: an immediate parliamentary inquiry into the circumstance surrounding this tragedy, including whether prior intelligence warning existed and what steps, if any, were taken to protect Ghanaian traders operating in high-risk zones. 2, full compensation and state support for the families of the deceased and the injured.
Immediately, the president of Burkina Faso, General Ibrahim Traoré, became a special guest at the inauguration of President Mahama. And I'm not saying it. Security experts indicated, Mr. Speaker, that Ghanaians were going to become targets. And indeed, these traders, Mr. Speaker, let's ask ourselves the fundamental question. These traders are not combatants. These traders do not play any role in the conflict in Burkina Faso.
And yeah, that was the basis for which the minority then launched their salvos at government, asking and demanding for a possible compensation. The NDC side also had a response to that matter, because the MP, Samuel Atamils, has been criticizing the Akufo-Addo government for sinking huge sums of money into that failed Pologo irrigation dam project, a reason for which the tomato farmers had to cross into Burkina Faso.
Your former flag bearer, who's now your new flag bearer, went on TV and said the best thing he has ever done in the north was the Pologo Dam. This Pologo Dam was supposed to help us irrigate some land. We spent $12 million US, and we don't have anything to show. If this dam has been built, we would have been able to grow our tomatoes up north.
Terrorism threats and crisis we have within our neighboring countries, especially Burkina Faso, is one that is not in doubt and one that does not start from yesterday. For the failure of the state to even provide travel advisory ahead of time, to advise travelers to Burkina Faso and to identify the high-risk areas, and for these traders to be led into the slaughter is most regrettable and most barbaric. Mr. Speaker, was there any effective joint intelligence sharing? And what intelligence was picked up by the people whose job it is to ensure that these intelligence are picked up and Ghanaians traveling to these hot zones are warned ahead of time? What safe passage arrangements were put in place to ensure that Ghanaians traveling to these hotspots were accompanied if indeed they had to go and return? Mr. Speaker, we demand answers. A lot has to be answered. What corridor threat mapping was conducted? And what enhanced security and safe passage mechanisms were activated in these places, knowing very well the situation and the threats we have in this country? And it comes at a time where for 7 months, we have no substantive defense minister who will lead these bilateral arrangements to ensure that these adequate security arrangements are put in place to protect our citizens who travel to Burkina Faso.
It is a good time now just to hear from these MPs who were on the floor earlier today, trading accusations over what the possible root cause of this terror attack might have been. Fortunately, we have the chair of the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament, James Sogah, who's MP for Builsa North, joining us. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for your time. Your colleagues there trading words over possibly what might have been the root cause of this terror attack. But if you're MPs indeed, and of course you are minded about the safety of Ghanaians, politics should not be setting in by this time. You agree, James Sogah?
Absolutely, and that is why I find it preposterous that very leading members of the minority caucus in Parliament would argue that the mere fact that Ghana hosted Captain Ibrahim Traore during the inauguration of President Mahama is the reason why Ghanaians were attacked in Burkina Faso. I mean, that argument is shameful. Why? Ibrahim Traore is the head of state of Burkina Faso. Ghana has diplomatic relations with Burkina Faso. And listen, during the inauguration of President Mahama, several heads of state across the continent and beyond graced the occasion. Burkina Faso is our next door neighbor. So why do they think that it would have been prudent for us to exclude Ibrahim Traore? In any case, the point to make is that terrorism didn't start in Burkina Faso under Ibrahim Traore. In fact, one of the reasons why Ibrahim Traore seized power in Burkina Faso was because he wanted to accelerate the fight against terrorism. I mean, that is the argument and justification he made for seizing power in Burkina Faso. Look, there has been collaboration between Ghana and Burkina Faso in the past in our quest to fight terrorism under the Accra Initiative.
But James Sogah, I'm not interested in what Ibrahim Traore is doing to the Burkinabe people. We're responsible for the people of Ghana, and that's why I'm putting that to you as to what you've done so far in ensuring safe passage for these individuals and also those who are receiving treatments. Yeah.
That in the past we used to collaborate under the Accra Initiative, which was introduced or spearheaded by the former president Akufo-Addo. Unfortunately, the same person who birthed the Accra Initiative is the same person whose actions brought the Accra Initiative onto its knees. You recall when the president at the time, Nana Akufo-Addo, went to the United States and reported to Anthony Blinken, who was the U.S. Secretary of State, that Burkina Faso had brought mercenaries and they were along the border too close to Ghana to fight terrorism. That immediately caused a diplomatic row. Now, under President Mahama, his reset agenda sought to revive collaboration between Ghana and Burkina Faso, which is why he immediately appointed a special envoy in the person of Colonel Boflo Lati to liaise between us and the Burkinabes to enhance intelligence sharing. So the point I'm simply trying to make is that the platform for collaboration and intelligence sharing was immediately set up by President Mahama because he recognized the fact that there was a need for us to share intelligence with Burkinabes in order to preserve the lives of Burkinabes themselves.
James Sogah, I appreciate that you want to, of course, jump to the defense of the president because there's politics at stake here. The security architecture has been replete with reports, even to you at the time when you were ranking on the Defense and Interior Committee, that there is intelligence, first of all, that Wagner is at our borders, northern borders. Then there are reports that we're becoming a safe passage for these terrorist groups, some of which are taking haven in our northern borders. You know of that report already. So it would not be the case that it is the John Dramani Mahama administration that is now bringing this new intelligence report. So the report was there long since, but we failed to act on it.
I'm not talking about the... No, please, sorry. I'm not talking about the introduction of any reports here. I'm talking about the strategies that have been put in place to ensure that there is collaboration and sharing of intelligence between the two countries. And I'm saying that conduit finds expression in the appointment of Colonel Bevlo Lati. This strategy that is in place debunks the suggestions made that there was no intelligence sharing between the two countries, and that is why Ghanaians went straight to the slaughter. It's regrettable to argue in that manner, and that is exactly the point I'm making. Now, let me add that the attack did not occur on Ghanaian soil. It occurred on Burkinabe soil. Now, question to ask is, could the Burkinabes have used their security apparatus to protect the lives of Ghanaians? The question is that Burkina Faso itself has been grappling with terrorist activity. Some time back, about 60% of their territory was under terrorist control. Thanks to God, they have been able to push the terrorists back and reclaimed the chunk of their territory, which was under terrorist control. So for all intents and purposes, intelligence reports show that the situation in Burkina Faso was getting better.
That will not be true if we're going by your own remarks, your government's remarks on what's happening, that the West Africa sub-region is becoming the epicenter for terrorism. 44 lives are taking on the average per day, per the statement that the Foreign Affairs Minister gave at the high-level security consultations which happened. The President was there, the Vice President was there.
I spoke about territory lost.
Yeah, I get that. So if you say...
territory reclaimed, are you in denial of that fact?
Well, I'm not denying that fact, but if you bring that up, the facts will not bear you out that we're improving in terms of...
I disagree with you. Insofar as the situation in Burkina Faso is concerned, I made it clear that over 60% of Burkina Faso's territory at some point was under terrorist control. Today, the situation has improved because Burkina Faso has been able to push the terrorists back and reclaim the chunk of their territory. These are facts.
Yeah, but that will be your
You
claim.
want to controvert those facts?
No, I'm not. I'm just sticking to what government officials from
let's
Ghana have
stick
told
to the
us.
Facts, my brother.
If you go by the terrorism...
It is unfortunate we have lost lives, Ghanaian lives in Burkina Faso, and my heart is with the families of the deceased. We send our condolence. Point I'm making is that let us not politicize this matter.
I don't intend to do that.
Like the government was reckless, and that the attacks in Burkina Faso on those Ghanaians who fell victim is as a result of the recklessness of government.
Yeah, James Agal, I don't intend. I don't intend to make this controversial. Neither am I seeking to make political scores out of this. But facts must be told that if you look at the terrorism index, West Africa is becoming the epicenter. The situation is getting worse, and I'm just referring you to what the president said at the high-level security consultations forum. In fact, the foreign minister was there and gave details of the numbers. It's getting worse. Let me now deal with what you intend to do. Have you spoken to the special envoy to the AES region? Is he going to appear before Parliament to answer some questions?
We haven't gotten to that. What our colleagues on the side of the minority did was to call for a probe. A probe into what? I don't know. Is it that we are not sure that Ghanaians lost their lives in Burkina Faso or what? They are talking about intelligence sharing. And I have demonstrated in our conversation that the platform for the sharing of intelligence under the NPP administration came to a halt following the withdrawal of Burkina Faso from the Accra Initiative because of the actions of President Akufo-Addo himself at the time. Today, we have revived collaboration and intelligence sharing through the appointment of an envoy. And I am saying that we continue to share intelligence. But on that occasion, when the attack occurred, would you say the terrorists are also evolving? Their tactics are evolving. Even the United States, which has the most sophisticated intelligence network in the world, suffered 9/11. So let us come together as ECOWAS. Let's forge some partnership with the Alliance for Sahelian States, even though they broke away from ECOWAS, so that collectively we can fight terrorism.
I get the point.
The argument I'm making.
I mean, that point is well, accepted by all. Even there's a bipartisan support for that. But what I'm pointing to now is the difficulty that you may have. ECOWAS, which you speak of, is no longer having any control, politically speaking, over the AES region. I was just speaking to the Political Affairs Commissioner of ECOWAS, Ambassador Fatal Musa, who's now backing calls for an investigation. But that can only be done if the government of Ghana triggers that and calls on the Burkina Faso authorities to do so. Do you feel that President John Mahama, having very good ties with these AES countries, will be able to call for that?
Absolutely. And that is why immediately the President Mahama took the oath of office, he reached out to the leaders of the 3 Sahelian countries which broke away from ECOWAS, which is why, in fact, Ibrahim Traore, a member of the Alliance for Sahelian States, graced his inauguration. And that is why I have no minced words in scolding the minority group which attributed the attacks to the fact that we hosted Ibrahim Traore.
James Agalga, James Agalga, you seem to be
on the one hand and the AESL to be able to effectively fight terrorism.
But you seem to be a big fan of Ibrahim Traore. Why are you doing that when we need answers now?
Oh, it's unfortunate to think that way. Ibrahim Traore is a head of state. I mean, he leads a sovereign people, just as President Mahama leads a sovereign Ghana. It is important for the two nations to have relations. And President Mahama, upon assuming office, has reached out to all countries. He wants to maintain good neighborliness. That is his policy. Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, these are our immediate neighbors. Nigeria, Mali, Niger, Guinea, all neighbors in the sub-region. Ghana must maintain good relations with them. And that is what the president is striving to achieve. And we must support him in that regard. Not to make comments like, why should you host Ibrahim? Ibrahim Traore.
So even if we have 8 Ghanaians, if we have 8 Ghanaians dying in Burkina Faso territory, you're seeking to tell me now that you'll not demand answers because you have good ties with the head of state and military ruler Ibrahim Traore.
Who said we will not demand answers?
You haven't triggered that till now. What's causing the delay?
The envoy is already in Burkina Faso. The Minister for Foreign Affairs is already in Burkina Faso. Why are they there? They are there because there is need for us to ask questions. There is need for us to see how we can further collaborate. We can enhance intelligence sharing collectively in our quest to rid the sub-region of terrorism. So steps are already being taken. And so while steps are being taken, nobody has said that the loss of 8 Ghanaian lives doesn't mean anything to us. Everybody is worried. If you know that the part of the country I come from the Upper East. We share a border with the Republic of Burkina Faso. So whatever happens there affects us on a daily basis.
Yeah,
we have not slept. Our foreign minister is there. The president appointed an envoy. Every now and then we continue to have engagements. Was it a surprise to you that when Burkina Faso had issues with Nigeria and an aircraft was impounded in Burkina Faso, it took the intervention of Ghana's envoy to the Sahel countries to negotiate a peaceful resolution of that impasse? So the same people, the same actors are already there trying to find answers. Yeah. So nobody has said that there is no need for us to find answers or ask questions about how the circumstances under which the 8 Ghanaians lost their lives. In any case, the same minority which is asking for a probe has already written, and I have summoned the ministers for defense and interior to appear before Parliament and brief us.
Okay, and they are
They
coming
have
when?
already taken that step.
When are they appearing before your
On
committee?
Tuesday.
On
We
Tuesday.
scheduled them to appear on Tuesday. And the invitation, my surprise, what surprises me is that the invitation was extended, and I accepted the invitation and invited the ministers. After I had done that, they came back to the floor again and read a statement seeking to have us probe into the matter. What is that?
All right, I get the point now, and that's why I want to hear from Reverend John Intim-Fojo, who's ranking member on the same committee which you serve on, Interior and Defense. And Reverend, it appears that this is grandstanding, isn't it? When indeed you have backroom engagements with your colleagues. The agreement is that the sector ministers responsible for the subject matter will appear before the committee Tuesday. You can't wait till Tuesday? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, thank you very much. In fact, it's really of the 8 who were killed.
It appears, unfortunately, we seem to be losing the lines to Reverend John Intim-Fojo. He will join us shortly. He's the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee. Emmanuel Bombande is a former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister. He understands these matters a bit more because he's into mediation and dialogue. He's a practitioner there in those matters. Thank you for your time, sir. Intim-Fojo is also back with us. I'll come back to you shortly, Mr. Bombande. But let's deal with Reverend John Intim-Fojo and his team, who are unable to wait until Tuesday. It's just Tuesday next week. That's just a couple of days away, Reverend.
No one should attempt to downplay the urgency of the matter we're talking about. 8 people have been killed. Several others are fighting for their lives. It is 7 days now, and we had to mount pressure before the foreign minister had the courtesy to travel to Burkina Faso. So, as we speak, the bodies of those who perished have not even been identified in a dignified manner for repatriation. As we speak, no minister for defense, no minister for foreign affairs, no minister for national security have had the courtesy to even appear before Parliament to brief Parliament on what occurred. It is 7 days.
Reverend, is it that
letter demanding a briefing?
Yeah, Reverend, is it that you don't
to write a letter demanding a briefing before a briefing is granted?
Is it that you don't understand the fact that the ministers have given assurances through the chairperson of your committee that they will appear before the committee on Tuesday?
No, it's not a matter of understanding. What I'm saying is that they didn't have to wait for 7 days after the incident had occurred for me to write a letter demanding briefing. They should have had a courtesy to appear. You recall when the 6 young ladies were sadly killed in El-Wak Stampede, that very day when we raised a statement on the floor, it was admitted. That very day when we invited the minister responsible for defense, he obliged. And that same day, he came to provide briefing. And here we are talking about 8 people who have died in the terrorist attack in our neighboring country, Burkina Faso, several others injured, the bodies of the perished not even identified and repatriated in a dignified manner. We have Chief of Staff and the Vice President gathering in Jubilee House, throwing a live concert and throwing the whole Jubilee House into a dance party like nobody's business, as if the nation is not mourning 8 compatriots. And this is the response we get, and they want us to wait till when? Ghana cannot wait. Because when we had our ministers and other NDC functionaries who perished in the sad plane crash, the whole country stood still. These tomato traders who today have died, and the NDC wants to wait till whatever time they are free, they all joined the country in mourning. We didn't wait for immediately updates were given. But today, tomato sellers and traders have perished, asking us arrogantly to wait till what time? See, we shouldn't only have the urgency to save lives, only when it matters to the politician. We are talking about security and intelligence failure. In the first instance, we all know the situation, the geopolitics in the sub-region. We know terrorism in Burkina Faso. Why didn't the foreign ministry issue travel advice prior to this incident?
Why were there no safe passage and escort for the compatriot traveling to Burkina Faso?
I get that.
Somebody
All of these
slept
questions.
on the job.
Yeah, all of these
they
questions.
could have prevented all these. And so if today, out of their negligence, we have had these number of people killed, then we need to demand answers. We need to demand action.
Right.
And if we are demanding answers and action, and 7 days they have failed to even voluntarily, we had to even put pressure on them before the foreign minister had to make the trip.
I get the point you're sharing with us now. In fact, these are questions that, of course, will be exhausted on Tuesday. But just to point out, and that's why I want to bring you in, Emmanuel Bombande, the traders have told me off the record that this is a place, Titao, is a place they've been visiting for the last 6 years. In fact, on the last attempt, where unfortunately we lost these 8 individuals, they thought it was a normal, routine activity by this jihadist. Jenin, we understand, is the group, only for them to be attacked because they never were attacked by these groups. If you are able to produce your Ghana card as identity that you're Ghanaian, they'll let you go and do trade for free.
Well, first of all, let me congratulate you for your brilliant facilitation of such a conversation. Let me put it bluntly. It is shameful that we should allow a politicization of something that is not just the tragedy of 8 of our compatriots dying, but that the tragedy extends far beyond that because the threat of terrorism continues to loom large across our sub-region. In a situation like this, what the people of Ghana want to see is a rallying of our political leadership to be able to effectively learn from what has happened and take the necessary steps to prevent. And this is where I believe we would have had a meaningful situation of this conversation rather than the blame game score political points. Now, to your question specifically, your question interestingly raises the dilemma. There is no point whatsoever that terrorists can treat you differently based on your Ghana card or your passport because of your country of origin. No. The truth of the matter is that terrorists have a certain objective to create fear and to destabilize the normal functioning of the state. Now, what is happening is that our compatriots were caught in the jurisdiction of our neighboring country, Burkina Faso. The circumstances and the context around that, which was not too far from the border of Mali, could not be subjected to the fact that because they were Ghanaians, they could be exempted. Because it is as if to say the terrorists line up people and interrogate them to attack. They attack spontaneously, and if you happen to be in that vicinity, you can fall a victim. So let us not create any assumption that terrorism chooses and picks who to attack. And secondly, let us not also create an assumption that intelligence sharing and gathering automatically now becomes foolproof, that a terrorist attack will not take place. It is to minimize, where it is possible, how to mitigate such attacks. But terrorism attacks will continue until collectively we deal with this matter comprehensively. And that is why it's not just about Ghana's role, it's about the role of Ghana, its neighbors, and the collective of the West Africa sub-region. That now makes it possible to deal with terrorism, not just in the fight against it, but in the sustainability of ensuring that we deal with terrorism. And this is a much broader thought that is required than this bickering that you are facilitating at the moment.
It's just unfortunate that time has passed, it's fast spent, but your insight is very helpful to the conversation. Emmanuel Bombande joining us there, former Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, also an expert in mediation and dialogue. Also to you, Reverend Jonington, Forger ranking on the Defense and Interior Committee, and the chair of the committee, James Agalga, my good friend. Anyway, that's it for Top Story. I am Blessed Sogah. Next is Ghana Connect.